Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's special edition of the Moeller Real Estate and Business Podcast. We hope you had a wonderful year, and here's to your success and fulfillment in the new year. It is officially our 1 year anniversary of the podcast, and we're so thankful for your support. Whether that be listening, sharing with others, giving us a review, sharing your feedback with me, whatever way that you've supported us, we are very very appreciative. It means a lot and gives the team here the motivation to keep the podcast going. So thank you so much. I've learned so much myself in the past year from getting to interview these guests and hope that you have been able to learn from the discussions as well. There were a few episodes that were very popular and had messages that really stood out that we got a lot of feedback on, stood out to myself, our team members here, or others. So we wanted to share these messages with you again, kind of a highlight reel, if you will, for the last year. So we pulled out some of the major highlights and just great messages for this special edition episode. We hope you enjoy listening to these as much as we did enjoy. Our first guest in highlight reel we wanted to share with you is with my discussion with Bryan McFarland. I really enjoyed my discussion. He's such a good friend of mine, and he shares how we should use our energy and our focus to win every single day. I know Bryan well, and I know his message is sincere and authentic, and he is truly living an everyday legacy, and we encourage you to do the same. Enjoy. If you would say, what has been your single key to success? Like if that's a word or whatever, how would you define that, or what would you say that word or phrase is?
Consistency. All
Consistency.
day, every day. Yes.
So tell me more about that. And I think you might even have an equation on that. Is that right, Bryan?
Yes.
I
So
can't remember it.
yeah, so there's an equation I learned a while ago. It's E times F times WIN. So E is energy, F is for focus, WIN is what's important now, to the power of C, which is consistency. So energy, what do you do with it? You focus it. What do you focus that on? You focus on what's important now. And if you're doing that consistently, then you have infinite returns. Like literally, if you had a scientific calculator and you're at 100% energy, 100% focus, 100% what's important now to the power of 100, that your scientific calculator would tell you it means you have infinite potential.
Yep.
Now, you're at 100%, 100%, 100%, but then your consistency is at 1, then it equals 1. So like the X factor really is consistency. So like if you don't want to go for that run, if you don't want to, do that core workout, if you don't want to make those 10 phone calls, like that has changed my life. I mean, we're a sales agency. So if I'm not showing up and open up my CRM and I have 20 follow-up calls that week, if I'm not doing that, then, I would not be anywhere close to where I am today. But I realized, luckily, my late 20s, that like, hey, if I'm just do this little bit of work every single day,
Yep.
over time, it's going to build into something impressive.
Yep. And honestly, first of all, that equation, and it reminds me the compound effect, right? By I think who you probably know who wrote it, but just the compound effect and the
Yeah.
Darren Hardy. But the compound effect is so important, and being consistent with what's important now, and I mean, all the things you talked about throughout the show, right? Energy, focus, understanding your priorities, and you're shifting that a little bit now to what you want to focus on, and you're going to be you're probably going to be, because you've learned so much, but quite frankly, you're going to remove some distractions. You're going to be more focused and more consistent on what's important right now.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Awesome.
So that's definitely my one key to success is consistency.
Well, I kind of talk through in this segment. I have some just quick questions on some different items that I call keys to success. First, being clear on your purpose, vision, or why, whatever you want to call it. Second,
Mhm.
educating yourself and surrounding yourself with a strong network of people to help you out. Third, taking action, taking risks, probably being consistent. And fourth, how do you lead, serve, or give? So I want to ask you just a quick question on all those different areas. So first, why do you do, if we go to the vision, purpose, why do you do what you do?
I think there's power in being an everyday legacy. And everyday legacy really means to me is how are you showing up and uplifting those around you with great energy where they leave that conversation like feeling seen, heard, and loved. And I think that as a purpose and the ripple effect from that can be huge. And I think that kind of may answer even your last question of, giving, serving, loving. That's what I really try to do every day as much as I can. And that's why optimizing my energy is so important to me, so I can show up my best.
And what's really interesting about your story, and I think this can apply to a lot of people, again, whether they're business owners or real estate investors, is you didn't talk about your product. And you're a sales agency. Your primary business is a sales agency. You represent a lot of companies and a lot of different products. So
Yeah.
you do a great job of supporting those. You're passionate about what you do, but not because of the product itself. It's because of just the everyday, how you said it, the everyday legacy and what you do on a daily basis, how you treat other people, which will lead to success in your sales agency business, of course.
Exactly. Nailed it.
This episode with Luke Henry was really impactful on me. The shift that Luke made in his business when he said, I shifted my business from a landscaping business to a leadership business was very, very inspiring. I'd encourage you to think about your role in your business, in your career, real estate, or whatever it is, and see how you can have an impact with your leadership. Enjoy the episode highlight. So you had told me a story about how you thought about your business. And I don't know if it was this decision or a future decision. I'm going to mix up the details, so I'm going to hear it from you. What was that shift like, or how would you compare your leadership from when you started to now, and what was the inflection point there?
Yeah. Well, leadership is like near and dear to my heart. I've become a student of it, and it's really changed my life and changed my business, taking that approach of just trying to learn how to be a better leader and working on it every day, and trying to also lead others that are becoming better leaders. So the inflection point there was about 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago. And I'll tell you, the story started out kind of rough. This story starts out kind of rough because at that time in 2018, we had acquired another business and brought on that team, and were assimilating them into our culture. We had hired a few other, quote, experienced industry people and brought them into our business. And just had a lot of growth. We were doing an office expansion project because we brought all these people in and we had nowhere to put them, and we were on top of each other. And at the time, the culture just went down the tubes. Frankly, we had some people that were really toxic to our culture. We had some people that made me, honestly, even as the owner of the business, not want to really work there, because It wasn't an uplifting place. It wasn't really positive. We weren't all rowing in the same direction. There was gossip, there was dissension, and it was pretty rough. And so we had a family vacation scheduled to go out west. We were going to Yellowstone, a Grand Teton area, and so it was July, and we've been dealing with all this. And honestly, I was like having these thoughts of, man, I think I just want to like fire sale this business or something. Like, this isn't fun anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And was really just in kind of a rough place. And we went on this trip. It was a good time to get out of town. Just me, my wife, and our two kids, and we were driving across the plains. I remember we were driving through Nebraska, and my family all fell asleep. And so I'm driving by myself, and there's just nothing at all to look at. And so I had never listened to a podcast before, but I had a few friends that were kind of telling me that they'd gotten into podcasts, and I was like, okay, I would like to check this out. So, of course, safely on the side of the road, I pulled out my phone and
I want to fact check that, by the way, but keep going.
Pulled out a podcast player, and I think I searched leadership or business or something, and the first one that came up was the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast.
Okay.
And so I clicked on it and I listened to one just in my earbuds. And I remember driving, and I like listened to like three of them in a row. And I just started to kind of like tear up.
Wow.
And I was like, this is what I've been missing. And I really had this moment. And then kind of over the next few days, I had some ability we were staying in a place and kind of having just some downtime. So I'd take a walk or take a hike, and was listening to more of these. And I was just kind of binging on this leadership content. And I just had this realization that I was the problem. As the point leader of the organization, I was the problem. But then I also became very empowered because I realized that I was the solution. I
Yep.
had agency to make a
Man,
change
that's
in
good.
my life. I had the ability to make a change in our business. And so I became, just really convicted that this was like what we were missing. And it wasn't just for me. I needed to share it with our team because we were growing and we needed leaders throughout our organization. It couldn't just be from me. And so I decided when I went back that I was going to start a leadership study for our entire leadership and office team. And it was going to be mandatory because I knew that I had tried it before and we had kind of done some of this, and it was like voluntary and there'd be 2 or 3 people come, and it just really didn't get much traction. But I said, I'm going to make it mandatory. It's going to be for an hour every single week. I'm going to lead it and we're going to learn together. And so I came back, I made that announcement, and we started it. And Phil, we've done it every week for the
Wow.
last 5.5 years, since July of 2018.
Wow.
And it's completely transformed our business. It's transformed our culture. Me personally, it's transformed a lot of people in our team. I'm really proud to say that we have a lot of the same people today and more that we did when I came back and we started that. And I'm convinced that those folks are with us very much because of the investment we made in leadership training and study through this process. It also helped us to eliminate some of the wrong people that were on our team. Within 6 months, there was 5 people that basically self-selected off our team, and most of them left. I think 1 or 2 of them, we let them go. And just because it became very obvious as we started going down this path that those people were not the right people for our team. They did not have a growth mindset. They did not have a leadership and kind of a mission focused mindset. They were focused on their own agenda and their own goals, and that's not where we were going. And so we wish them the best and allowed them to go elsewhere. So it's been quite a ride, but that's the story.
Ryan Kennedy had a great impact on me and my family's health over the last couple of years, not only from helping us get healthier over that period of time, but we learned so much during that time. And those are things that we can apply to our lives for many, many years to come, and hope that our family and our children can do the same. Because of this, it was so important to bring him on to the show to talk about how being healthy is such an important part of having the energy to live out our purpose. Enjoy the episode.
I got interested in natural health at a very early age, so really from a pain to purpose journey, where at the age of 14, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And being a young guy, I didn't really understand the extent of what causes this and what options are available. But I remember her going through just the conventional medical system, really chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, the standard of care in medical oncology. And she received a lot of questionable advice at the time of, what you eat doesn't matter. No herbs or vitamins or natural therapies are going to help you. Your only option, if you want to get better, is to do these very harsh and, chemical-filled pharmaceutical drugs and hope for the best. And so that's what she did. This was going back before social media and internet research was quite as prevalent as it is today. And unfortunately, Phil, she passed away 2 years later at the age of 54. And this was a big wake up in my mind of realizing, number one, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. While my mom was going through this cancer journey, she wasn't worried about what car she was driving or what clothes she was wearing or any of the materialistic things that we pursue in our society for most of our lives. She was worried about, hey, how can I spend more time with the people I care about? How can I get healthy and live a longer life? And when you really look at that, you start to realize what really matters in our lives. And so that was a big wake-up call for me. And then number two, it really got me thinking from an early age, 16 at the time. And it's like, well, why do people get sick? How do you prevent this? How can I live a long, healthy life? And that's what sent me down this path initially. And so I studied kinesiology in my undergrad, very centered more on the physical side of things and fitness and physical therapy. And as I was working in my physical therapy clinic, I realized early on, this is great. I was helping a lot of stroke victims. I was helping a lot of people that were in car accidents and suffered really debilitating injuries improve. But I also realized, Phil, if you're not dialing in your nutrition, your sleep, your stress management, doing lab testing to determine imbalances in your gut health and your hormones and nutrient deficiencies, well, you're only really tackling one pillar of health with the physical fitness side of things. And so that's when I went back to post-grad school, studied naturopathic medicine and clinical nutrition to really dive deeper into a more broad, holistic view of health, because all these different areas of our bodies and our health is interconnected.
Okay.
And so that's what brings me to where I am today, where I run a full-time practice and consult with awesome patients like yourself in terms of really the A to Z of health, helping people optimize their diets, their supplementation, their training, their recovery, their stress management, their mindset, really looking at all of these things and really helping people design efficient and effective protocols to optimize their quality of life and their longevity and their performance.
Well, I want to get into that more, but you said if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And I've also heard a different quote that a sick person has, sorry, a healthy person has a million dreams. A sick person has one, right? They just want to be healthy. So that speaks a lot to just the preventative stuff and taking care of yourself so that we talk a lot about on this podcast about vision and purpose and other things. Well, you got to take care of yourself to be able to pursue those things. So I think that sets up the next question for you, quite frankly, is you're on a business and real estate podcast. We talk about all kinds of things, professional success and personal success. Why is health so important to success in whatever is important to people, whatever success means to our listeners?
It's the foundation, Phil. If you are fatigued, if you have brain fog, if you're chronically inflamed and in pain and not able to think clearly and perform well day to day, that's really going to impact your business success or financial pursuits in a negative way. So being tip-top physical condition and having the mental clarity, the verbal fluency, the memory of a high performance individual is going to give you such a competitive edge and enable you to really excel in all your business endeavors on a whole nother level. And having that baseline motivation and being able to get up and get after it and wake up feeling refreshed and energized and be able to crank through 8, 9, 10 hours worth of work and not feel burned out and not feel like you're struggling to have high levels of productivity and output, dude, that's essential. I think anyone could relate to that.
Craig Stammen is a true leader in every sense of the word. I'm so appreciative of Craig coming on the podcast and sharing his approach to leadership and why and how he was such an impactful leader during his Major League Baseball career. Like, were you anointed that leader? Did you earn that over time? What was your style? Let's talk about that a little bit more. What influenced that, or who influenced that?
Yeah, I think, trying to answer that question, I think part of it is earned. Part of it comes with longevity and having done it before and experience. And a lot of it comes with wanting to do it and being the person that's able to model the model. You got the coaches and the front office, they kind of set the tone and the culture of what they want a Washington National to be or a San Diego Padre to be. And then there's got to be certain players that partner with the people in charge to take the culture clubhouse and be the model of what a San Diego Padre is or what a Washington National is. And so I felt like I was fit for that role. I could follow directions and do what the coaches asked of me and what the front office asked of me, and I could do it as best I could, and then show the younger players that you can have to do that. Being a relief pitcher was probably the most difficult part of trying to fall into that leadership role, just because you're not counted on as a big contributor to the team. You're counted on, but only in certain spots. Relievers really only get on Sports Center if they give up home runs. They're not the headline story. So,
Yep.
You've got superstar third basemen, stops, catchers, center fielders, starting pitchers. Those have a little bit more clout, I guess, within the clubhouse. But if you're genuine, speak the truth, do things the right way, and understand in your head that everybody can be a leader, not just the most talented or the people that get paid the most or have the most prominent positions. you can find your fit and you can find a way to partner with those guys and build a great leadership team.
Man, I love that. If I think about business or organizations or people within an organization, or I think there's a book, you don't need the title to be a leader, right? I mean, you just summed that up so well. So you're not the shortstop or the number one ace starting pitcher that just probably get some extra recognition for that. Just or you don't have the title in an organization, so maybe you don't easily get that recognition. Quite frankly, maybe you need to work a little bit harder than the others to become a leader, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And if it probably takes time, consistency. I heard that on an interview with you, or comments from your teammates about just being consistent over time, right? If you're a leader for a day, that's good, but it takes time, right? So I just think I think that's a great analogy that any role in an organization can be a leader. And the other thing is, personal brand is another thing I like to talk about. Is you're always building your personal brand, no matter what role you're in. You're always building your personal brand, and people are recognizing that. Whether that's obvious to you that you're recognizing it, that they're recognizing it, you're always building your personal brand. And I suspect if you go back to your early days, just observing, learning, hungry, right? Nose to the grindstone. People saw that, and you were building your personal brand from an early age.
Yeah, you're right. And it's funny that you mentioned the title of that book. When I was in high school, my senior year of football, it was a big deal to be a captain on the football team. And I remember not getting voted a captain for the Versailles Tigers my senior year. And our head coach came up to me. I was starting quarterback, came up to me and said, "You don't have to be a captain to be a leader." And so as I got older, that saying, I still remember it. I still remember the exact place on the practice field at the Versailles water treatment plant that I was at when he told me that. And it took a burden off my shoulders. Like, yes, you can lead. It doesn't matter if you have the C on your chest or not. There's a difference between who's the captain and who's the leader of the team.
Yep.
The captain is anointed by everybody. The leader is the person who acts, does, feels, and kind of handles the culture on a daily basis. And like you said, you can't just do it one day. You've got to be able to do it every day. And I think that being that consistent person, a genuine person with the values that I got raised with, was definitely a big help in my journey as a baseball player and to be a leader in the clubhouse.
Awesome. So I mean, we talked about some things, but um, what like what was your what would you say was your leadership style, especially in the later years when, okay, now you had the experience, you had shown up with the consistency, you didn't have the C on your chest, but you were recognized. What was the style? What was your approach to that?
It was to be an encourager. I wanted to make everybody feel like I was on their side. I was rooting for them harder than I was rooting for myself. And so I felt like if they had ever had trouble, if they ever had success, they knew there was one person that was going to be, right there beside them, and that was me. And so always having that listening ear and having a positive word of encouragement was definitely, a big part of my leadership style. And I think the second part of that was being genuine too, is always doing what I say that I was going to do. If I told somebody that, hey, I'm going to be here at this time and we're going to talk about this and that, and I'm going to help you walk through it, I think I had to do it. It was part of the deal. I didn't want anybody to think that something was coming out fake or I had an agenda of what, we were trying to accomplish. But, being an encouraging, genuine, and putting the team, ahead of myself, those were probably my three biggest traits as far as being a leader. And I think guys are attracted to those traits.
It was my great honor to get to interview the late Tim Kight on the podcast before his passing later in the year. He had a major impact in his life on so many people, and his legacy and his impact will undoubtedly continue. Tim had a great impact on me personally with his life and his leadership coaching. I will never forget talking with him after the episode recording and him telling me, "Phil, physically my body is breaking down, but mentally and spiritually, I'm stronger than I have ever been." Tim truly built a mindset that could not be shaken. I love the topic of mindset, and we could stay there a lot, but I want to step back a little bit because mindset and the management of your mindset is a piece of the puzzle here to the R factor, which is kind of the bigger, broader lesson, and quite frankly, the core, I think, of your teaching. So, at a really high level, what is the R factor?
Yeah, it's based on the equation E plus R equals O, which is event plus response equals outcome. And the message in E plus R equals O is that you don't control the event, you don't directly control the outcome, but you always have the ability to control how you choose to respond. And so the R in that equation is that's the R factor. And that R, that response, is the one thing in life that you can evaluate, change, and improve to produce better outcomes, personally and professionally. And it's really amazing when you come to the realization you do not control events. They happen and you don't control them. But you do have the ability to respond. And my social media post this morning was, what was it? I'll just read it right here real quick. Yeah, you can curse the wind and fight the current, or you can adjust your sails. The wind and waves favor the skilled captain.
And I follow, just for everyone, I follow Tim on LinkedIn, like Twitter. We'll get to that later. But if you're on social media, follow positive things. And Tim and Bryan, quite frankly, Focus 3, they're a great group to follow. So E plus R equals O. Tim, actually, another book that you had referenced at some point in time is the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink that I read several years ago. And the mindset of extreme ownership is taking total control, I think, in a way, of your life and I guess it's easy to perceive that as the outcome versus the response. So if I go back to your equation, so I don't control the outcome, am I a victim then? Or talk me through that thought process a little bit.
Yeah, great question. You earn the outcome by the quality of your response. And that's one of the things I love the most about E plus R equals O is it's a simple, accurate system that describes the way life works. And here, how about this? Real straightforward. If you want a better outcome, choose a better response. And for every outcome you want, there is a discipline response available to you. Again, back to discipline over default.
Yep.
I can have a discipline R or I can have a default R. And a discipline R produces a very different outcome than a default R. And I get to choose. And the other thing is that the ERO, the outcome is giving you feedback about the effectiveness of your R. And what back to my point about mental weakness and our emotional fragility today, that when people don't get the outcome that they want, what do they tend to do? They don't look to themselves. They don't take, to use Jocko's term, extreme ownership of themselves. When they don't get the outcome that they want, they immediately look to the E, the event, the situation, the circumstance. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to know that I want. And they start what we call BCD. They blame, they complain, they defend, and they whine and make excuses. Well, that is undermining your own efficacy. That's giving up the agency that you have. And that is literally turning your back away from the one thing that you control, the one thing, because I don't control the E, and I don't control the O, but I do control the R. And the only way to a better O is a better R, period. And the challenge that people face is, one, there's just tons of social support for victimhood. There's tons of social support for blaming, complaining, and defending. It's very social. And people don't do that. They don't whine and complain by themselves. They're recruiters. They recruit others into it. I gave a keynote here recently, actually this week in Memphis for the largest bank in the South, top 275 leaders, and I went over R factor. And as I shared these principles and these disciplines, their eyes got really big, and you could see that they were recognizing, hey, our bank's going to perform based on how 7,500 employees manage their R factor, which is 100% true. The way employees to talk. If you got business people who will follow your podcast, my message to them is this: every single thing that happens in your business, and strategy is important, and I get all that. Certainly, I do. I mean, I've got a business, and we are very focused on strategy and technology and process and things. But at the end of the day, performance in the business is about how people choose to respond to things. How many R factor decisions does the average person make in a day? I mean, it's huge. And so the outcomes that you get are it's the collective responses. And then you multiply that times the number of employees in the business. So one of the greatest gifts that you can give to people in a business is teach them how to manage the R.
Yep. And
because that's the one thing they control.
And you talked about recruiters of, so just for the audience, picture BCD with a big red circle with a line through it is what I remember saying. There is zero value to BCD. These are Tim's words that he taught me, but it adds nothing to the equation. And the concept of recruiters of BCD, aka gossiping and other stuff, it starts to be a part of a culture. So I want to shift gears a little bit to
but that's I winced when you said that because I'm so aware of that because of the work that we do in so many businesses, and BCD is toxic. It damages everything that it touches. So you're right. You're 100% correct on that, Phil.
So I want to talk about the opposite of BCD, or discipline and, performance pathway. Leaders create the culture that drive behavior that gets results. And there can be recruiters of the right culture, the right mindset, the right approach, the right response. So talk about for the business leaders, for the aspiring business leaders, quite frankly, for just anyone in any organization, because you don't need a title to be a leader either. Tell me more about the performance pathway and leadership and culture, and what do those things mean?
Yeah, so the performance pathway is that leaders create the culture that drives the behavior that produces results. Leaders create the culture that drives the behavior that produces results. That's the performance pathway. And it's really powerful because it represents literally everything that happens in the business is subject to the physics of that pathway. And
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that the big message there again is if you look at the pathway, leadership, culture, behavior, results, it says that all results are produced by how people choose to behave. And then it says that behavior is collective behavior, group behavior, culture is what drives that. And if you want great outcomes, you need great behavior. You want great behavior, you need a culture that supports it. That if you ask for behavior in your strategy that's not supported by your culture, you're going to struggle to execute.
Yep. And if you create
great behavior will not survive a culture that doesn't support it, which is an interesting statement. Great behavior will not survive in a culture that doesn't support it. So if I want to behave effectively, if I want to be a great listener, a great teammate, I want to change, I want to be innovative, I want to, live the culture, but the organization doesn't, or my group doesn't, and I try to say, wait a second, we got a value statement, let's follow the values. And, well, no, we don't do it that way. And it gets toxic and goppy and all that. I'm either going to submit to that culture and become one of those cynical people, or I'm going to leave.
Yep.
Here's what is not going to happen. I'm not going to stay and fully engage and be full performance.
How does the opposite happen?
That's scary.
So core values, culture, all good, all in alignment. Poor behavior, poor person, poor attitude, whatever, that gets embedded in the positive culture. Is it the same? Does it work?
It does. And the way it works is you take each of those pieces, leadership, culture, behavior, and you have to focus on them. And you have to have a disciplined strategy for developing the leaders, the culture, and the people. That's what you have to do. There is no magic pill. There is no app. There is no like 1-2 thing that you can do. It's that's why we wrote R Factor. R Factor is the behavioral toolbox that teaches people how to behave with discipline rather than on default. That's why we develop what we call the culture blueprint and the power of culture process that we use to help organizations articulate what are our core beliefs, how do we want to behave based on those beliefs, and how to communicate that. And then we match R Factor with the culture statement. And we use a thing called 20 square feet, if you recall.
Yep, of course.
20 square feet is the principle that there you go. Yeah, I love it. Every single person in a business has 20 square feet of ownership, 20 square feet of responsibility, 20 square feet of control. And inside the 20 square feet, they've got control. Outside, they've got impact. And the R factor is the toolbox that equips people to own their 20 square feet.
And what I would say is that for the audience, these tools are all not just all phenomenal tools in and of themselves, but there's alignment and synchronization amongst these tools and how they work and how they tie together. And really, we'll come back to it at the end, but I just encourage you to check out the Focus 3 website and see some of these high level tools, follow them and learn more. Again, thank you. We are so appreciative of your support. We hope you enjoyed this highlight episode. If you haven't done so yet, we ask that you just take a minute or two to leave us a review, to share this episode with a friend, family member, coworker, or anyone that it could help. We're just so appreciative of you listening, and any way you can help is very, very appreciated. For the Moeller Real Estate and Business Podcast, signing off.